Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another dose of our daily Amonkhet spoilers, and we have a packed full day today. We have so many new cards to talk about, a bunch from the mothership, a bunch from other sources, so we better get right to it, because we have a ton to cover. First card up today, and definitely the most exciting card of the day, is God number 2, the blue god, Kefnet the Thoughtful. And this is actually I think, Japanese spoiler, so this is an unofficial translation. The name could be a little different. Kefnet we know for sure, but the Thoughtful is a guesstimate, and the abilities are probably pretty close, but take it with a grain of salt for now. So basically, Kefnet the Thoughtful is kind of crazy. It is almost the opposite of the god we looked at yesterday. Instead of needing to be hellbent, Kefnet needs you to have at least 7 cards in your hand to attack or block. Thankfully, it helps you do this by allowing you to pay to not just draw a card, but also you can bounce a land to your hand, which means you get +2 cards in your hand to turn Kefnet into a real creature. If you can turn it on, it's a 5/5 flying indestructible for 3 mana, which is an incredibly fast clock. Super, super powerful. So what is the comparison for this? And it seems weird to keep making these comparisons, but really, Kefnet is sort of Thassa, God of the Sea-esque. You get a 5/5, it's indestructible. The upside of Kefnet is it has flying, while Thassa, you can make something unblockable, but it costs mana. And then Thassa scries for free every turn, but Kefnet gives you the ability to literally draw a card, but you have to pay a bunch of mana. But still, as a 3 mana 5/5 indestructible that is only a functional creature when a certain condition is met, it's clearly reminiscent of Thassa, God of the Sea. So in Standard, what are you going to do with Kefnet? And I think it's one home. There's only one place you would really play Kefnet, and that is a straight-up control deck. Having 7 cards in your hand is challenging for mid-range, impossible for aggro, but it's very easy to do if you're a control deck and you're playing Glimmer of Genius and then Torrential Gearhulk back Glimmer of Genius. So I think that's Kefnet's role. The question's going to be, is control good enough? So far we've had some issues with control decks, and while they spring up every now and then, it's hard to build a control deck that can answer Heart of Kiran out of Mardu vehicles and answer the Saheeli Rai Felidar Guardian combo out of 4-color Copycat. So is there a place for like a blue-white or an Esper control deck in Standard? We'll have to wait and see, but if there is one, Kefnet is almost certainly going to be a finisher because it is super powerful and I think way stronger than the red god we looked at yesterday. Next up, we have another blue card, this time a blue-white legend, Temet, Visor of Naktaman. And this card is very interesting. It's probably the best Embalm card we've seen so far. Not only does it give you a 2/2 body for 2 that comes back as a token for 5 mana once it dies, it allows you to kind of make a token lord. So if you are the mummy version, the zombie version of Temet, it's essentially a 3/3 unblockable because of its ability. It's also sort of a token lord in some sense, not a true lord, but it's a tokens matters card that makes you want to play tokens. So what are we doing with Temet? And there's a couple of options. First off, you could be just like a blue-white aggro build with some loose token synergies, stuff with Thraben Inspector, Handwear Militia Captain cares about a bunch of creatures and it makes tokens, Master Trinketer can make tokens, and then of course Temet, even before it is embalmed from the graveyard, lets you pump up those tokens and makes them into more reasonable threats. Another maybe more fun thing to do with Temet, and this is probably more against the odds or casual than competitive, is to use some crazy token theme cards from Standard like Second Harvest to double up your token. Saheeli's Artistry can make a token copy of a Metalwork Colossus or something, then Temet can make it unblockable. Ovaya lets you make some really big tokens as well, so there are a few tokens matters cards, mostly in the Bant colors, so maybe Bant tokens could be a fun archetype to play with Temet in Standard. Up next we have Chandler Initiate, which is sort of a new 2 mana Birds of Paradise, which is kind of the going rate. So this one is interesting. cycling. The upside of Chandler Initiate is it gets really big. It starts off as a 0/1. You can remove counters from it for 3 turns and make a mana of any color. Eventually it's going to end up a 3/4, which is a lot bigger than your typical 2-mana mana dork. So there's some big upside there, and I think it's pretty good. The question is, most decks in Standard right now care about energy in some form or another, whether it's Ether Hub or Harness Lightning or some combination of different energy cards. So the question's going to be, does the bigger body of Chandler Initiate make up for the energy synergies of Servant of Conduit? If you're not playing a deck with any energy synergies, Chandler is clearly better. You get more mana activations out of it and a bigger body, but if you have even a few energy synergies, you might trend towards Servant of the Conduit over Chandler Initiate in your ramp slot. Next on our list, we have Drake Haven, which is a pretty exciting enchantment. Over the first few days of our Amonkhet Daily Spoilers, one of the questions we've been asking is, what kind of payoff do we get for cycling? We've seen a lot of cyclers, we've seen some little payoffs, but we haven't really seen a big one. Are we going to get an Astral Slide? Are we going to get a Lightning Rift? And while Drake Haven is not Astral Slide or Lightning Rift, it's a pretty good payoff if your plan is to build a deck that wants to win by cycling cards. So 3 mana, whenever you cycle, you pay 1 mana, you get a 2/2 Drake. In some ways, it actually compares really favorably to Lightning Rift, which of course does direct damage, but making 2/2 bodies every time you cycle for 1 mana is a really powerful ability. So I think this might be the card that we've been waiting for to make the cycling deck real. It's the payoff you need for cycling. So you have all your cycling lands. You have cards like Archfiend of Ifnir, which can help clear your opponent's board. Renewed Faith suddenly becomes awesome, gaining you life, also getting you a 2/2 Drake for only 3 mana. Just like the kitchen finks, essentially, of cyclers. So we'll have to see whether this can compete with the big decks in Standard. But Drake Haven is efficiently costed, and it seems like a really good payoff card. And not to mention, in casual games, you can definitely play this alongside of your Astral Slides in your Lightning Rifts in a casual legacy or vintage deck. Up next on our list, we have a cycle of uncommons, and these ones aren't super exciting for Constructed, but they'll probably see a lot of playing commanders. So the Monument cycle, named after each of the gods, makes creature spells of a certain color less to cast, 1 of each color, and then it also grants another bonus when you cast a creature spell. The green one pumps up your creatures, the white one gives you a 1/1, blue one taps down creatures, then we have the red one that lets you loot, and Bondu's Monument, the black one, drains your opponent. So I think that the comparison here is the Medallion cycle from back in Tempest, and these cards are fairly popular in Commander. You play them, give all your stuff a cost reduction. Of course, they're not as good for comboing because they're only creatures, and a lot of times when you're comboing off, you want your spells cheaper, not your creatures cheaper. But I still expect that a lot of Commander decks will play the Monuments, maybe even alongside the Medallions, as a effect that lets you play your stuff a little bit cheaper and eventually generates a ton of mana each turn. Up next, we have another split card, dual card, aftermath card, fuseback card, whatever you want to call it, Prepared to Fight. And this one, I'm pretty disappointed in. It's essentially 2 commons stapled together, and apparently that makes it a rare. So the front half lets you give a creature +2/+2 and lifelink at instant speed. The bottom half lets you fight for 4 mana. The thing is, it's kind of what Dramoka's command does for 2 mana at instant speed. So I'm not seeing the appeal of this card for Constructed. I'm sure it's fine in Limited, and maybe that's why it's a rare. It was just too good for Limited. The bigger news is they announced that they are changing the rule with split cards. It used to be that you could cheat them into play with Brain in the Jar, Karyzev's Expertise, Goblin Dark Dweller. Basically, as long as one half of the split card met the criteria of what you were trying to do, you could cast both halves. So Brain in the Jar with 2 counters could cast Prepared, but it could also cast Fight. But now they're changing it so in your hand, the converted mana cost of split cards is the combined converted mana cost. So Prepared and Fight is 6 mana. That really changes things, and it really messes up stuff in Modern. We've seen Bet Call, Boom Bust, Breaking Entering really start to take off with Brain in the Jar and the Expertise cycle, but these decks suddenly just die because of the rules change. So while our Fuseback card of the day isn't really exciting for Constructed, the impact of the Fuseback cards and the rules changes they necessitate is actually going to be massive and have a huge shakeup on some semi-competitive decks in the Modern format. Last but not least, we have a bunch of commons and uncommons, and we're not going to go over these all in depth because there's a lot of them. Cash Out is actually really good. It cycles, it's 4 mana, it has flash, it hits anything. While 4 mana is a lot, it's a really solid removal spell. I mean, that's one more than Hero's Downfall, and you can cycle it when it's bad. Essence Scatter, as sad as it sounds, is actually kind of above the curve for standard counter spells, and Consuming Fervor is really aggressive. If you throw this on a creature on turn 2, you're getting in like 5 damage right away, so maybe there's some aggressive red deck that could use it. The rest of the stuff, I'm not even going to read the names. Lots of commons and uncommons that you'll probably see in Limited, but aren't especially relevant for Magic outside of that. Anyway, that's been our Daily Amonkhet spoilers for today, highlighted by Kefnet the Thoughtful, the Blue God. So let me know in the comments, what do you think? What do you think of Kefnet? Is this better than the Red God we saw yesterday? What do you think of the rules change impacting the Fuseback cards and other split cards? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What other cards do you like from the day? Anyway, let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.